Hello students, my name is Liz Attia and today's topic is abortion. Okay, so the conservative or pro-life position with respect to abortion is that the fetus is a human being and thus possesses a right to life, and if one denies this right to life, one is committing murder. The pro-choice debate focuses on the right to be free of government interference, and that should take precedence over the fetus. The liberal pro-choice position is that a woman has a right to choose to terminate a pregnancy at any stage, regardless of any moral rights attributed to the fetus. And the more common liberal stance is that abortion is a very serious decision and is not justifiable for trivial reasons. I guess few perspectives are polar and absolute. When it comes to abortion, you'll find many people sort of take a bit of a middle ground decision and actually say, well, it all depends on the circumstances, which we probably hear quite often. In terms, I guess, of the ethical considerations, there's a lot of discussion around the early versus late abortion question, and that probably goes to the question around when you actually consider life to begin. So much of the debate amongst pro-choice pragmatists is about when life begins and thus when abortion should and should not be allowed. Typically, early abortion is less than 20 weeks and late abortion is greater than 20 weeks. The point of viability becomes really important here because many people will actually say, well, life begins at the point when the fetus can actually survive on its own, irrespective and independent of the mother. The problem with that argument is that that's not definite. The point varies from fetus to fetus. It's not a definite time. And in terms of the range of time, viability was reached somewhere between 22 and 25 weeks. So that leads to a little bit of the notch problem, which we talked about in the last lecture with respect to the elderly, and this idea that meaning is then given to an arbitrary time or an arbitrary figure as if that somehow makes a determination on whether something is ethical or not, knowing really it's not as definitive as we would like to actually think. So this will give you, I guess, a pictorial concept, I guess, of, the problems that we then come to when we actually talk about the fetus and the right to life and when life actually begins and when it doesn't. And like I said, the notch problem occurs when a tiny difference in one attribute results in a huge difference in how a person is treated. And that goes to the question, at what point should an abortion be allowed or not allowed, and in what circumstances, based on the idea of when you consider life to begin. So in what circumstances should a late abortion be allowed? The answers consist of four main alternatives, where continuation of the pregnancy would result in the death of the mother, but how serious does that threat have to be? Should we include both physical and psychological harm? Where the fetus has an abnormality that is inconsistent with life outside of the uterus or has a severe abnormality, but again, how do we judge the quality of life before it actually begins? Where late abortion is sought for good reason, but again, what constitutes good reason? Or in any other situation where a woman seeks a late, in any situation where a woman seeks a late abortion. But what if we actually think a fetus has some moral value? Now, this is sort of the consideration from the ethical position. I'd like you also to consider the legal considerations here, and the readings for this week actually go to this topic. And actually cover the legal position in Australia. So in New South Wales, the law actually says that an abortion is illegal unless necessary under the doctrine of necessity, and the readings for this week actually cover that doctrine of necessity. It's considered to be physical or psychological harm, and that threshold as to what constitutes that harm, however, is not very difficult to meet. So if the mother can actually claim that there is some detrimental effect on her financially, emotionally, psychologically, or physically in terms of her preparedness, and that would actually meet the threshold. The law also says that the fetus is has no legal rights, but also is a legal person worthy of protection. And I ask you to sort of consider what you actually understand by that, and whether there's some inconsistency there in terms of the law trying to hedge it both ways. So considering the rights of the fetus at one level, but then saying that it has no legal right to be protected and the right to life. So food for thought there that we'll actually explore further in the tutorials for this week. Just highlighting the concepts to you at this point and noting the considerations in the readings as we discuss them, including the tutorial exercises and the activities which you're asked to participate in. Okay, thank you.